These mystical musical sound waves are going to emanate through your computer and prepare you for learning. See, you're ready. This is the Vibratone. It's my emotional support instrument. I play all my lit grooves on the Vibratone. Greetings and welcome to MU2605 for class on Friday, April 3rd. I have 2 chapters to cover with you, and I'm going to try and do that in about 10 minutes. Wish me luck. Okay, here we go. Getting right to it. Do a little screen share with you. Actually, no, let's not do the screen share. I wanted to have Angel say hi real quickly. So let's bring Angel into the picture here. Angel, up. Do a sit for me. Okay, and up. Very good. Do a little dance. Yes. All right, Angel, you have said hi to the class. Thank you very much. So, all right, we've had our mystical music sound waves. You got the dog right here, and I think we're ready for this. So now let me share my screen and get rolling on chapters 7 and 8. If you haven't read them yet, make sure you do. Here we go. On teaching for musical competence and the students. Who are they? Okay, I have a couple questions for you. First, will you base your teaching solely upon past experiences? Second, will you teach based upon a scripted or a teacher-proof curriculum? Well, these are yes/no questions, and spoiler alert, the answers are no. You're not going to teach solely on past experiences. You're going to bring your own kind of new and fresh approach to teaching, and you're not going to teach based upon a scripted curriculum. You might do some of that as you start in your career, but you're going to develop to the point where you're able to be more flexible and make decisions in the moment that help learning. Here's a nice quote from the chapter. Technicians deliver curriculum, while professional music educators use all their teacher knowledge to make informed decisions that facilitate each student's musical learning. Okay, so a few methods, and first a question. Spoiler alert, this is another no question, by the way. Should secondary teachers disregard the methods that have been traditionally associated with elementary music? No, because they can translate readily in many other settings. These are not just elementary methods. And so they include Kodai. You can see the various emphases with the Kodai approach. ORF, which unifies speech, singing, and movement. And you can see here a sequence for learning improvisation that begins with imitation, progresses to exploration, and then improvisation. Remember those 3 words because they might come up on an exam in your near future. Some people would also add composition to ORF, depending on the kind of learning sequence. We have Dalcroze, which has a 3-pronged approach consisting of eurythmics, solfege, and again, improvisation. And then Gordon music learning theory, which has much to do with measuring aptitude, particularly for children, and developing musical achievement. Okay, so some unifying elements, and you may have noticed either overtly or maybe you didn't know it was the OR for the Kodai approach, but you may have seen some of these particular facets that were taught to you in your school music experiences. Some of the commonalities include sound before symbol. People learn language to speak first. We learn to speak before we learn to read and to write, and we learn through imitation, as in with the ORF approach. So with that, logically, individuals should learn musical sounds before they learn to read and write them. Experience before theory. We want to make sure that we immerse our students and engage them musically before giving them the theory or what are the cognitive constructs that we want to teach. Teach from the known to unknown. What is it that our students do know, and how can we use that as a doorway into developing new knowledge? Use sequential instruction and teach from simple to complex. So again, these elements would be common among all of the pedagogies. Here are also some Pestalozzian principles, and you'll see again some crossover between these suggestions and what we read about with the pedagogies or the methodologies. Sounds, again, before signs. Teaching actively, not passively. In other words, again, we engage our students in experiences, and explanations can certainly occur, but that should happen after the experience. Teach one concept at a time. Master each step before progressing to the next. This has to do with that sequencing. A lot of people would call this scaffolding as well. And then finally, practice before principle. So again, have the experience, be immersed, be engaged, and then we share what we might call the theory, the content, or the cognitive aspect. Focusing primarily on the activities in which teachers and students engage without carefully considering the learning is disadvantageous because teaching and learning are not inextricably linked. People can learn without being deliberately taught, and teaching can occur without learning. Digest that one. Okay, moving on to chapter 8. Hopefully we're doing good on time here. Going to try to make this in close to 10 minutes. The students. Before knowing the students, we have to have a good understanding of who we are as a professional, as a musician, as an educator, etc. So what is our background? Who is our family? What are our accomplishments, our challenges, our priorities? And there's something else there, etc. What does it mean to know about your students versus really truly knowing them, such that they feel you know them? Read again in the chapter. There are some really important hints and tips. I'm going to share some of the practical suggestions with you here in a moment. But the message is get to know your students. What are their interests? What are their interests outside of music class, but also what are their musical interests? And some of those will be outside of music class as well. The authors suggest that we all embody a disposition of inclusiveness. We wish to live acceptance, which will help to build our classroom communities. We want to know our students' strengths and what are their challenges. And another quote, the choice or choices of how we go about fulfilling our educational responsibilities will make the difference between whether they forget a lesson before the next class or remember it for the rest of their lives. Another kind of heavy quote there. But we never really realize the kind of differences that we make when we give students meaningful musical experiences. It's largely why we're all in this, right? So in terms of the students, I like to share some photo images. This is my elementary choir. These are grades 4 and 5 children at Ruskin Elementary in Florida. And that was about a 60, 70 member choir. Some great young musicians in that group. And yes, by the way, there is Mr. Edmund back in the day. Okay, more on knowing your students. Important point that labels involve knowing about, but we got to get beyond labels and truly, again, know the students. Look at the discussion board photo. If you have your book, please grab it. And this is on page 174. You can pause the video and then catch up with me. But they're asking the question, what are some things that you notice? And as we look at this, some things that initially come to mind: different clothing, different facial expressions, different skin tones, different hairstyles, different focus points. Where is the student's focus? Even maybe different singing styles, or if you can tell, are they really truly singing or not? And there are a lot of other things that we can notice, but this one image tells us a little bit, at least, about the diversity within this particular classroom. But it also doesn't really get to who are the students, because that's going to take another concerted type of effort on our part. Some of the diverse elements among our students include race, religion, sexual orientation and identity, poverty level, and intellectual ability. Humans are complex people. That's one of the joys of teaching, or kind of weaving through those complexities and again, making a difference in people's lives. Miriam has a list of functions of music. They're largely related to cultural identity. I encourage you to read carefully through those. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go through all of them. And then another important point is that arts education can be greatly beneficial for at-risk students. We've seen this not only in the research, but in practice as well. And I've had the privilege of working in some at-risk situations. The work that I've done as a musician educator, but also the work that I've done with some others. And one of the great examples, some of you got to know or got to meet Mr. Eltino Pickering and the Rising Stars Youth Steel Orchestra, which came to Duluth back in October of 2019. Hopefully, you were able to hear their concert or their rehearsal. I think all of you were probably there when they performed for us in the recital hour. But yeah, that's Tino is right here in the middle of the front, and he's one of those individuals who is truly making a difference through music. Okay, a little bit on students with disabilities. The IDEA, or the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, was initially authorized in 1975 under a different title. It was reauthorized in 2004, and that's going to be some legislation that you'll become a little bit more familiar as you progress through this program. Also, another term that you should be familiar with is IEP, or Individualized Education Plan. And this is students with disabilities are typically going to have an IEP, and there are a number of constituents who will be involved in contributing to the IEP, and the IEP is a way that we are able to communicate among professionals for the betterment of the student. One of the primary themes that we would take from the IDEA would be the requirement that all children learn in the least restrictive environment. Okay, another thought, an important piece from the chapter 8 had to do with the 5-factor trait model. This tells us again a little bit more of the social complexities of the students that we work with, and it has to do with openness, and there's a continuum here from curious to cautious, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And so each individual exists at, or embodies, different degrees of these particular characteristics, or they exist somewhere on that continuum. For example, from compassionate to cold, from outgoing to reserved, etc. And knowing as much about our students and these particular characteristics can help guide our instruction. Okay, here are some of the practical suggestions from the authors on knowing our students. Of course, we want to learn their names. Very important that we know our students' names. We can use name tags. We can use seating charts. That was something that was very beneficial for me when I had usually about 450 to 500 students with whom I'd be working with on a weekly basis. And seating charts was the way that I was able to learn those names in a reasonable amount of time. Using picture cards and then playing name games in class. Use your students' names. It's a very powerful way of communicating, and it's really important. Engage your students in conversation, both in and out of class. Attend your students' functions when possible. If you can go to the sports games that they're involved with, or some social clubs or different things that they're doing, it's great for you to be able to have that kind of a presence and make different kinds of connections with your students. When I taught, we had a lot of after-school programs for our kids, and one of them, there was sports. And I went out and I played football with the kids, and believe it or not, back in the day, Edmund was a masterful all-time QB. Anyway, I played football with the kids in 5th grade, and some of my little tough at-risk students were in on the game. And, after having that kind of connection with them, we had a different relationship. It was like, oh, Edmund plays football too. And then all of a sudden they were great in music class. Working with the guidance counselor is really important. So the counselor, there's so many different professionals within the school. The guidance counselor is an important one in terms of knowing who the students are, because they're going to work a lot with some of those students individually. Your students will know you based upon your daily decisions. So think about that one too. This is largely how they will form what is their perception of who you are as a musician educator. Okay, to wrap things up, there's a mini project, and what the purpose of it would be for you to get started on your benefits of music education video. And so there's a link here. You can find the link also in our MU2605 online page. And so I'm going to show you that right here. And basically, all you need to do, put your name and tell us what is a concise plan for what you plan to do. What would be the setting? What kind of character would you plan to be in the video? And what would be one of the benefits that you would share? And if you haven't given much thought to this yet, it's okay. You've got some time. But do go in and look at the project description. So let me talk a little bit about due dates and etc. Oh, and by the way, please contribute to this file. Just a few sentences, give a brief description before 10 p.m. on Monday, April 6th. Okay, back to close things off with a few announcements. Read Chapter 9 for next week. What do your students learn? The video demo is the project that I was just talking about, the benefits of music ed. That's due on April 16th. Thursday, April 16th. Teacher observation is due April 23rd. Those are the final projects for this class. The final exam will take place, of course, online, and it will be hosted between 9 and 10:50 a.m. on Friday, May 9th. I will keep you posted on that and make sure that everybody is able to access. Okay, so that's what I have for this week. Be safe, be well, I'll be in touch, and please do not hesitate to contact me with any questions. Take care, all.